Amphoreus is many things. It's a world Akavili has never been to, a location with 50 different factions and their eons interested in, and most of all, it's the current setting of the latest Trailblazer quest. All in all, a sought after tourist destination, if you can ignore the apocalypse, that is. There is one more thing about Amphoreus, however, that further adds to its charms. It just so happens to be the birthplace of an emanator of destruction. But that can't possibly be true, right? Amphoreus is such a happy and wonderful place. Well, it's not, and with everything we've learned in 3.3, it points to the possibility that Amphoreus might actually be quite a suitable incubator for one of these messengers of doom. So in this video, I want to discuss the Ravager shackled here, who, as it turns out, might have been here from the very beginning of Amphoreus itself. Before we discuss that further, however, if you want to see more Honkai Star Rail content, do consider subscribing to the channel. While I might have briefly hinted at it in the intro, this video will contain quite a few spoilers from the 3.3 story. So if you haven't cleared it yet, then I suggest you do that first. Otherwise, consider this your obligatory spoiler warning. Now, if you've watched my other video on this Amphoreus Ravager topic, you must be wondering, why am I talking about this again? Have I not discussed this topic before? Well, yes, I did, but in 3.3, quite a few additional details have been revealed, which kinda sorta made me change my perspective a bit. So now I'm going to approach the same topic but from a slightly different angle. In short, I'm basically changing my mind. Anyways, there's two additional pieces of information that you need to know before I get into the details. Firstly, in 3.3, even more evidence has surfaced in regards to Amphoreus' somewhat artificial nature. While we have had hints of this before, now it's even more obvious that Amphoreus is fake, or dare I say it, a simulated environment. In addition to the black tide appearing like some corrupted data that you'd find in one of my super secret personal homework folders, the world itself is crumbling. Due to the literal end of the world, many of the structures in Amphoreus now appear hollow and take on the appearance of pre-rendered digital objects. Now, either Amphoreus didn't pay their subscription to their rendering software, or everything that was digitally faked is now starting to show its true form. Simply put, as the servers are preparing to get rebooted, everything is returning to its pre-rendered state. The second thing you need to know is that Herta and screwllum, yes, the Tin Man is here now as well, has revealed a few interesting things in their discussion. You see, the thing kephale has been lugging on their back for the past few patches isn't actually a giant magic skybulb, but rather, it's a scepter. Don't know what a scepter is? Well, it's essentially a piece of super tech Rupert II built to amplify his own knowledge and an attempt to somewhat replicate news. It can do quite a few things, from destroying galaxies to even creating planets. There's quite a lot of information and backstory related to them, but for the purposes of this video, just think of them as super machines that can practically achieve or do anything. But what has any of this got to do with the Ravager? Well, you see, in that conversation between Herta and screwllum, the spin-to-win gremlin also mentioned that the Scepter eventually became the cradle for the birth of a Lord Ravager. This implies that a Ravager was born or created on Amphoreus. It might sound a little contradictory given Ligus in 3.2 claims that the Ravager was shackled here, implying that they were brought here and trapped somehow. So which is it? Was the Ravager created on Amphoreus, or were they captured and can't leave? The thing is, there is a way for both Herta and Ligus to be right. What could really be happening is that the Ravager was indeed created or born on Amphoreus and just never left, or couldn't. So how did this rather weird turn of events really play out? Well, if I were to ask you to describe Amphoreus so far, how would you answer that question? While Okuma might seem sort of livable right up until the apocalypse, the rest of Amphoreus is pretty much a hellscape of wars, natural disasters, and death. Suffice to say, in its long history, Amphoreus has seen plenty of suffering and pain. On top of that, there are clear indications that this isn't the first time this has happened, given Amphoreus has experienced multiple cycles, as confirmed by both Anaxa and Ligus. Each time the miracle of Genesis occurs, existence resets itself, and all living beings are seemingly fated to experience it all over again. This very environment is what likely contributed to the creation of the Ravager, because if you recall, it's the very same environment that allowed Nanook to ascend. In Honkai Star Rail's lore, Nanook was said to have originated from the planet Adlivun. The inhabitants of this planet were the unfortunate witnesses to the carnage and destruction brought by the Swarm and the Mechanical Empire. Countless deaths and never-ending destruction that might rival a typical Warhammer 40k world was said to have occurred on Adlivun. This experience is what supposedly caused the mortal that would be Nanook to ascend, becoming the Eon of Destruction. If this story is true, then something similar might have happened on Amphoreus. Imagine if someone or something experienced constant death, suffering, and destruction that repeated endlessly. Would it be such a surprise that they would end up on the same path as Nanook? Add to that the limitless capabilities of the Scepter, and you might have the perfect conditions for the creation of a ravager. What makes this even more interesting is that because Amphoreus is pretty much closed off to the rest of the universe, it might also provide an explanation on how and why the ravager can be both born and trapped here. It's not that they were captured as I initially assumed, but rather was born into the endless loops of Amphoreus and just unable to leave. If that isn't interesting enough, think about this. As I have alluded to earlier, Amphoreus is very likely virtual or artificial in nature. So what if the Lord Ravager was something of a similar nature to that? Not an organic being, but rather a digital one or something in between. In the past, I made the video talking about which Lord Ravager I think is on Amphoreus, and early on, I discounted irontomb because it's unlikely they were sent here given Amphoreus didn't seem super technologically advanced. But if they've been here the whole time, and Amphoreus is some sort of super advanced simulation, then it changes my perspective on this whole thing. Irontomb could be a digital or virtual sentience that's part of Amphoreus, and through the destruction it witnessed, gained more and more access to the path of destruction until it eventually became a ravager. This non-physical form might also explain how they are able to destroy other civilizations despite being trapped on Amphoreus. Given a scepter exists here, and we have seen Herta and screwllum materialize their projections on Amphoreus, maybe the reverse is also possible. If Irontomb, who is known to be sent to more advanced planets, is actually a living sentient virus or something, through the use of the Scepter, it would explain how they could destroy things in other places without having to physically be present. They would essentially just infect the technology of their target planets through intergalactic Wi-Fi and can destroy civilizations without actually being there. In addition to this whole sentient virus theme, the Black Tide could very well be a manifestation of their powers as they attempt to break out. However, the Black Tide has been mentioned several times to be from beyond the sky, so it could very well be something else entirely. Either way, this idea means that Irontomb could very well be the Ravager that's here on Amphoreus, having been not only born here but bound to the endless cycles of Amphoreus. The Ravager is unable to escape because each time the Miracle of Genesis triggers, they are reset alongside the entire planet. In fact, this might also be by design, with the planet reset cycles created to hold the Ravager here and limit their influence on the universe. This might also mean that Irontomb is far more powerful than we might initially expect, given they are basically held back here. Of course, I'm just guessing based on what we've seen in the story so far. Most Ravagers, or rather Emanators, are said to have gained their power through the blessings of their Eon, so could one ascend through exposure alone? I don't know. That said, individuals like Acheron do exist, so it's not completely out of the question either. Irontomb may or may not actually be the Ravager spoken about here, and perhaps they do have a physical body instead of being some sentient virus. But with this additional information, I feel that at the very least, they are now back in contention as a possible candidate. Whether it's really Irontomb or not, we'll have to wait and see. Do you think the information revealed in 3.3 hints at it being Irontomb, or is it all just a coincidence? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you found the video entertaining, do consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Thanks so much for watching, and as usual, have a nice day.